This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. We're here every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on webcast1live.com. Tonight I'm in the driver's seat. Lefty kind of drove us left into the ditch.
Hey, don't want to go. You don't like those R for reverses there, Doc.
Well,
D for drive.
D for drive?
D for drive.
All right, good. So anyway, Lefty had a bunch of events this last week. Unfortunately, I didn't make a single one of them. So I'm sorry, Lefty.
They were in establishments that you're not prone to frequent. So I would assume that was probably the reason.
Well, I just hate stepping through the muck going to those places. I'm teasing. These were nice places. The Duck Blind was one. The Flying Moose was the other. It just didn't work out for me. So how did it go for you?
Oh, it was very well received. Let's just put it that way. We did really well. All three shows were fairly well attended. The show on Saturday, we were across the street from Mickey's, and Mickey's had Eve 6, if anybody remembers that band from the 90s.
Yeah.
And we went, apparently, obviously Ducktail doesn't have as big of a space as the tent over by Mickey's did, but from what I hear, we did pretty well, and we were able to keep a crowd pretty solid for about 2.5 hours.
Well, I know Sean was in town. That used to be your old partner, and he sang and you were the musical, as I remember.
Well, he plays guitar as well. Really what the situation was, I'd do some stuff on the harmonica and play guitar if the harmonica wasn't appropriate. All
right. So, but it went well, and you did well, and if you guys have never had a chance to hear Lefty play, he's actually pretty good. That was one of the reasons I was up late a lot of times, because Lefty would have the mood hit him, and he'd be up playing all night long over at his house. It's a good time.
I got to say, I strongly doubt over those video games that you played well into the wee hours that you could hear an acoustic guitar across the street.
Well, I'm just saying that you would, yell or sing.
That's true.
And we could hear that. And, we did go outside every once in a while, because occasionally you have to stretch your legs, right?
Every once in a while.
Every once in a while. Well, we have a good show coming up today, I think. We're going to talk about some of the terrible decisions that these heads of these programs are making as far as cuts they need to make to the sequester because of the sequester. The second thing we're going to talk about is it's the 10th anniversary of the Iraqi invasion. Now, those of you who keep up with me on Facebook, you're going to know that this is a little bit of a programming change. On my way home from work today, I stumbled into a band of lefties, and they appear to be lefty loonies because they mentioned Ed Fallon.
Yes, sir.
Oh, my goodness. So I stopped and said, listen, since you guys are kooks, patriots, why don't you come on down to the studio and talk to us about what you're doing? Because what was interesting is not necessarily that they were out there touting an extreme leftist view, but that they were out there protesting the drones and President Obama's statement that, well, yeah, I can kill American citizens on American soil without due process. That's essentially what Holder said, and that's essentially what Barack has kind of said.
Okay.
And you know it.
You know that's a mischaracterization of how it went down, but I'll let you have it.
All right. So she's going to be texting, and because she's on her way down on a bus. Being a good lefty, she's taking mass transportation.
Hey, that's good.
That is good.
A bike would be better, but some people
Hold
have
on,
to carry
it's freezing cold out there.
Doesn't stop Ed Fallon.
Ed Fallon's nuts. We've already established it's a little left of loony. All right, we love him. Don't get me wrong, Ed. I love you a lot, but keep in mind, that guy does ride in this kind of weather.
He does.
And so Ryan's going to go down, or Frank's going to go down and get her when she gets here. So. And then there was a third subject that...
Well, we haven't talked about healthcare in a while. And the governor of the state of Iowa, the wonderful, inimitable, fantastic Terry Branstad.
Absolutely.
Just probably one of the best minds in the state is he's got his hill. He's gonna die on not expanding Medicare. And as a physician, I'd like to hear your thoughts about
expanding
that.
Medicare,
Medicaid.
All
Sorry,
right.
yep, Medicaid.
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. One, he couldn't get any guarantees from a former.
Well, we can talk about that a little bit later if you wanted to.
Oh, all right. Well, that's one thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is the hot mess the Republican Party is. It's getting worse. I really, after they went through this big thing about 2-3 months ago. Remember, there was a big schism, and the governor went after A.J. Spiker and vice versa, and that feud was simmering. Now there's a couple other feuds. This has gotten worse. It's gotten worse over time. Karl Rove kicked the hornet's nest. I didn't realize it was going to be this much of a colossal blunder.
Well, it was great. I mean, when you have Sarah Palin saying to Karl Rove, "You lose elections," and Karl Rove saying, "Well, at least my guys finish out their terms," you know it's going to be good.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, you got all kinds of stuff. The latest big news is the RNC has come up. It's a non-advisory advisory board, and I'm not quite sure what they were trying to do, but they've come up with a lot of different ideas about how to nationalize the primaries. Basically, they're going to go with different regions. Iowa's probably not going to be the first in the state, but where our region is going to be first. We're all going to have straightforward primaries and not caucuses. And they want to make all these changes very quickly. They want to essentially give amnesty to the illegal immigrants. They want to start acknowledging gay marriage. And they want to do all this very quickly. Now, the problem is they haven't reframed any of these arguments. They've simply said, we pretty much need to capitulate. I've read most of it, not all of it, but I've read most of that proposal, and that is essentially what they're saying to me. Now, Lefty and I, we've talked about all these issues.
Ad nauseum.
And what they've really missed the point on isn't you need to capitulate, it's that you need to reframe what you want to say. You can't get up there and say, we hate gays, gay marriage sucks, they're just a bunch of blasphemers, because that doesn't really work, because Christ said he who has no sin may cast first stone. That's where I think that comes in. The other thing is the Old Testament is pretty clear about if you have gays in your camp, you can't allow them to stay, right? You can still do business with them. You can still bring them in and have them do whatever, decorate your home or whatever they do, but you can't have them be in your home. That is what the Bible, the Old Testament, says. And the problem is people want to overlook that kind of thing.
Well, I'll kind of just ignore some of the more I don't know how you
offensive.
Yeah, stuff.
I didn't mean. My intent was not to be offensive.
No, I understand, but. What I was having this thought the other day about, because every time homosexuality gets brought up, the Bible trots its head out and says, "Hey, remember me, folks? Here I am." And I was thinking the other day, when I would argue with religious folks when I was in college, and when I was more argumentative about the subject just in general, I would make certain points about the faith, and they would say, "Well, God's plan is mysterious, and no one really knows, and so you have to trust in God's plan," right? I mean, just different questions that I'd have. And you've heard that a lot. You've probably said that to some people. Our brains are not capable of understanding God's plan. Like if I'd point out something in the Bible that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, why couldn't that same statement apply to sort of views of homosexuality? I mean, it's pretty obvious that the Old Testament and the New Testament, with the exception of what Paul says in Corinthians, is they're fairly inconsistent with one another. Jesus Christ wasn't going around saying stone a bunch of people. Okay, Paul said that it was a problem, but maybe sort of saying more about what the Old Testament had said. It's the Old Testament where most of the issues of homosexuality come from.
You bet. Now we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get right back to the dichotomy of one, the Republican Party, which would be a trichotomy at this point.
Right.
And we're going to get back to a little bit of discussing why the Bible gets inserted into these social debates. We'll be right back after the break. Thanks for tuning in. We're on webcast1live.com. You're listening to Doc and Lefty.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hi, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. You're listening to us on webcast1live.com every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. Before the break, we're talking a little bit about the RNC Advisory, Non-Advisory Committee recommendations to the Republican Party, where essentially they capitulate on almost all the social issues, one of which is gay marriage. What Lefty was talking about a little bit before the break is how the Old Testament and New Testament really don't agree on a lot of different things.
Well, it's you hear about the New Testament reaffirming the Old Testament. You hear a lot of that stuff, how Jesus came to confirm the law, all that business. But the point is, if we're not privy to the inner workings of the mind of God, and we just have the Bible to go by, and sometimes the Bible is confusing, and the response to people that don't agree with the Bible is, well, you don't really understand what God's plan is going to do. Why can't that same point be sort of given to the gay marriage stuff, or to homosexuality in general? If God is supposed to be all-encompassing and loving, and love everybody, and be all-encompassing and sort of accepting, and homosexuality is something that, everyone now with a new understanding kind of agrees is not necessarily a choice, is not a mental disorder, then maybe our understanding of God is evolving, and God's love for all people has been there the entire time.
Well, and I think you and I agree on that point, because one of the arguments I often find myself in is, and this is on both sides of the issue, because you have liberal Christians and conservative Christians who agree on this issue that they don't want gay marriage in the in our state. But if one of the things the Bible says clearly is that we are all created in God's image, well, now that creates a problem if you're not perfect. I mean, I'm perfect. I'm pretty sure Lefty's almost perfect.
Getting there.
And out of the three of us in the studio here, Ryan's probably the closest to anybody, right? So, because look at his glasses. I like those are so cool. He's just perfect all the time.
I know.
So you have this problem where if you're not perfect, or if the way you're built is in violation of what God's tenets are, now what do you do?
Yep.
Right. So is it your job to make sure that other people can't enjoy the same property rights that you enjoy, and that's an important issue.
And it strikes me as this insistence on, that it's a learned behavior, it's a chosen behavior that is inconsistent with morality. Sounds a lot like when folks in the 18th and 19th centuries said that African Americans were an inferior species because of the way they looked, and they had a whole bunch of science to back that up. And I feel like it's just a primitive understanding of what homosexuality is. And so once, I think, as the population kind of turns over, and some of the younger folks that don't care as much about it take on more leadership roles, and those older folks that are against it either accept or die out. That's kind of what's been happening. Rob Portman's the first sitting Republican senator to acknowledge homosexuality as not the evil that everyone thinks it is. Then we're going to see it's going to change inevitably, and I think you're just seeing sort of the last, like the death throes of this really virulent anti-homosexuality stuff.
Well, now, I know I wouldn't call it virulent. Let's face it, there are people that belong to a church, and one of the church's mandates is you can't be a homosexual. I mean, that's what they believe.
Yeah, that's
you can't
that's
practice
true. That's
that.
a fair point.
And one of the things that the Republicans are trying to skate around, or this recommendation they're trying to skate around on, is that if you are gay and you want to be married, the state cannot require the church to marry you. And I believe that's healthy. If you should not require people of faith, of any faith, to do something that's contrary to what they believe.
I haven't heard of any state that's done that, I guess.
Well, one of a lot of times the way these laws are scripted or written, or the way the judges interpret them, leaves it open so that you would force a church to have to marry gay couples. That's the fear that they have. And there's been, when I was running for Congress, there were several instances where, a church was locked into a lawsuit with gay couples who want to be married in their church.
Well, I guess,
so I believe there ought to be some protections for the church not to have to do that.
I would allay those fears just in Iowa specifically, is that the law that was the specific provision of the law, and I won't quote it because I don't remember it exactly, that was struck down as unconstitutional in Barnaby Bryan was when it said that only a marriage between a man and a woman would be valid under the law. That means that you can only get a marriage license if you're a man and a woman. Only a man's name and a woman's name can appear on a marriage license at the same time, and that's what was struck down as unconstitutional. And so two men or two women that want to go get married, they can get that marriage license from their county recorder or whoever it is that provides it. And I don't even remember. That's pretty bad on my part. And then they'd have to take that marriage license to wherever they're going to get married. And if the church that they want to go to says no, I don't see how they have a legal recourse, because as a private institution, and I've never seen anything that exempts or that pulls churches into that sort of public accommodation space that would make them have to be non-discriminatory. They can discriminate all they want. Yes. I mean, they discriminate against other religions all the time by saying, "Hey, we're not going to give you a Hindu ceremony, or we're not going to perform Passover for you because we're Christian and we do it this way." So well, I just don't see how that would ever happen in Iowa, specifically because of how the decision reads. But what did trouble me is that 18 senators co-sponsored a bill to make it illegal or not necessarily illegal, but to prevent these county officials from issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples, which seems just on its face facially unconstitutional, just completely against the spirit and the letter of Varnum. It baffled me. Now, our favorite senators, like Brad Zahn, was not in that list. I was happy to see that. We like Brad around here, and he wasn't on that list. But it was just shocking to me.
And he loves us.
He does. That these senators did, and it was in the House too. A bunch of representatives came out, and the two bills are a little different. But it just
part of the
shocking to me.
Part of the thing about this, part of the issue that I have with this entire non-advisory advisory board is the way they've tackled illegal immigration. What they've essentially done is said, well, we ought to let that go and make them all citizens. Here's the problem. Reagan already did that. Reagan already granted a blanket amnesty, or essentially a blanket amnesty. And the problem got worse. The problem didn't get worse over time. It got immediately worse. And it kept snowballing. And even with our terrible economy, it's still a major problem. You can't reward violating your laws. I do believe a lot of changes need to occur, and they've suggested good changes. And in fact, as you know, a lot of those changes are changes I advocated from long ago. Doing a guest worker program, expanding the number of non-skilled labor visas that they issue. They only issue 5,000 of those visas a year.
Yeah.
5,000? Are you kidding me? You can have 30 million PhDs come over and not blink an eye. But the moment you get, unskilled labor, well, you can't. Well, the problem is there's only so many, skilled labor positions, and really the need is for unskilled labor.
Well, and kind of piggybacking on that, even the highly skilled workers that come over, like the H1, I think is what it's called, the H1 visas.
H1J1s, yeah.
Yeah, are hard to re-establish. If it expires, the process for staying in the country is very, very difficult. So you'll have someone who's, I mean, the situation lends itself to an instance where a physician, a doctor, a person who came from a foreign country on a valid visa was practicing medicine in this country legally, and it expired or elapsed, and the process was so difficult that legally that person would have to go back to their country, and we don't want to see that either. And I think that making the whole process a little less complicated and confusing. I mean, you have folks who are trying to get here legally who are on the lists for 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
And
yes, absolutely.
It's completely bonkers to me.
Right after the break, we're going to continue our discussion about the illegal immigration problem that we're facing and what the Republicans are trying to do. You're listening to Doc on Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We'll be back right after the break. Please stay tuned.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Lefty? Oh, it's me. No, Frank.
Well, you know what? I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. Welcome back, everybody. This is, I was just, during the break, I was just kind of praising Doc for being a fantastic arbiter of this program, and then he goes and pulls something like that, and
it was Frank. Now it was your picture up there. I mean, I know I'm cute. I'm just not that cute.
Well, I appreciate that. And I do like wearing the suit to the show because I think it lends a modicum of class. We were talking about illegal immigration, though, and we were talking about some of the reforms. And, honestly, this breaks down just the way that nearly every single policy debate breaks down, because everybody knows there's a problem. Everybody knows the specific ways to fix it. And nobody really disagrees on sort of like the different policy proposals that they would be maybe their effectiveness is in debate, but that they would have some sort of positive impact, Republican or Democrat. What seems to happen is that the debate breaks down over what to do first. You have the Republicans who want to secure the border and want to shut the country, shut the spigot off completely before they tackle the people who are already here. And you have the Democrats saying, well, no, we got to take care of the people who are already here. You can do both, Congress. There's no reason why a comprehensive piece of legislation, it's just like the healthcare debate. Yes. Now, you and I agree, for the most part, that the cost structure was really an issue, and that figuring out the reimbursements and all the cost things probably was more important of the two aspects of healthcare reform. Well, why couldn't that be a comprehensive thing? And it's because they bog down in fighting what should be done first, access or cost. You can do both. There's no reason why these bills have to be so simplistic in their scope. And that's really what frustrates me, is that, hey, we have a problem. Yeah, I know. We're trying to figure out whether or not to throw water on it first or to go and get buckets of water and do it that way. Like if we need a hose or a bucket brigade, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, but what we do know is you need water. And if you don't have a hose, use a bucket.
Exactly.
And that was my criticism when I ran for Congress. That was my criticism about the way Congress operated. Well, there was a very interesting review in the Liberty Journal that showed that basically talked a whole lot about the problem with this comprehensive reform is that they were shifting more of the control from local grassroots Republicans to a centralized command. And part of that problem of shifting the centralized command is the fact that all these consultants are more interested in raising money than delivering votes. Karl Rove is a very typical example. Bob Vanderplots, now Bob can deliver the votes. Rick Santorum was a beneficiary of that this last time around.
That's right.
So Bob can deliver the votes, but Bob also raises a ton of money. So unless you're going to have some kind of control over these people, these consultants that raise a lot of money for the Republican Party, but really can't deliver the votes, and especially the conservative votes, the Republican Party is doomed.
Well, are you suggesting that the sort of the grassroots is the problem then, or are you saying that it should be more centralized?
No, I that's what the people that came up with this non-advisory advisory board want to go ahead and shift from grassroots to more central command. And I think that's a terrible idea. You need grassroots people to go out and vote. We've had Jill on the show a couple of times. Remember her?
Yeah.
Jill, she's a tremendous person. She doesn't give a lot of money because, honestly, she works for a living and she has her own business, but she helps everybody get organized. She comes out, she's at all these events, everybody knows her, and when it comes down to, hey, Jill, can you help me get some votes? She's got a ton of votes sitting right there. That's grassroots effort. You talk to, there's a friend named Vince Oslet. Remember when Newt came through?
Yep.
And I was his chair. We're delivering 80, 90 votes that night, right? We got 10 days to get our act together. And Vince Oslet was one of the people that helped me. Grassroots effort.
Do you think that it's a kind of a reaction to the Tea Party stuff? That the sort of the dissolute, non-organized organization that is the Tea Party really scared the bejesus out of the Central Committee, and that's and this is the reaction that you're seeing, that they want to exert more control over what's been happening because the Tea Party has kind of run the Republican the establishment, I guess you would say, establishment Republicans off the rails.
Well, it may be. I know that's why Karl Rove formed his PAC. His assassin PAC is what they ought to call it. And what people overlook is all the Tea Party favorites that didn't get reelected made the news. But there were far more established Republicans that didn't make it than Tea Party favorites. Yeah. Simply because you defeated a sitting incumbent, that should tell you exactly how poorly he's representing his district and his state. Especially with the Democrats and Republicans are both equally guilty of this. There's essentially an incumbent protection plan that's in place that if they won't help if they're afraid they might lose that seat. So it's an institutional problem. When you're talking specifically about Republicans and this plan, giving up on gay marriage is going to alienate your Christian base that is going to finance and grassroots support your candidate. When you capitulate on amnesty, you might get some Hispanic votes, but most Hispanics that are here are not for blanket amnesty. If you look at the polling, they want help. But if you look at the ones that went through the process, they think that you ought to change it, but they don't think you ought to reward these illegals with amnesty. So whatever gains you might make, there's going to be far more losses from this approach.
It sounds like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if they don't do something, this wedge that is the Republican Party's sort of schizophrenia on social issues right now, and the fact that they've lost 5 of the last 6 presidential elections by popular vote, if you count Al Gore.
Yes.
Then what you're going to see is the Republican Party. Now, I'm not predicting this because every time you say that a party is dead in the water, they rise again. But if they continue to have this infighting, if they continue to have these sorts of just sort of complete ignorance and blindness to the demographic shifts in this country, they're going to become a sectarian, regional minority party. and that's just gonna how it's gonna be.
Well, and you know, I would agree with that assessment. They're going to have to figure out a way to become a big tent organization and put their differences aside. We'll be back right after the break. We have a very special guest who not an hour ago was standing on a corner protesting the Iraq war and drones over Iowa. We'll be welcoming her in here. Please stay tuned. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. We're joined today by Kaylin Stain. Strain, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
She was protesting I'm not sure she was protesting, but she was definitely demonstrating on the anniversary of the 10th, on the eve of the 10th year of the Iraqi war. And Kaylin, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm pretty good.
So take it away, Left.
Well, Kaylin, first of all, thanks for being here. We always like to have people drop by the studio, especially folks that were doing doing something that was really 10 years ago was it in American politics. The Iraq War dominated the landscape. It really was the most important thing at the time, and kind of hasn't been really talked about today, has it?
No, not really, especially in the mainstream media.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what the event was today and what you're doing?
It was a peace vigil that was sponsored by the Catholic Peace Ministry, and there are some members of Vest for Peace, and of course some of us are also part of Occupy Des Moines, and we were out there to show the public that the Iraq War is still going on, and it's been that long, and that all wars in general have to stop, whether it be by soldiers or with the use of drones. And so we had signs relating to that effect, and we got lots of honks. People would come up to us and ask what we're doing, and They were very supportive of what we're doing. We didn't have anyone yell any obscenities at us, which is nice to hear for once. Sometimes we get that.
Well, do you think that the sort of the shift in kind of that Republican politics away from sort of the more aggressive bellicose foreign policy is a little bit to do with that?
Yeah, and well, the fact that these wars have cost so much of our taxpayer dollars that could have been better spent to job creation, healthcare, education, taking care of the veterans instead of just leaving them in the lurch, taking care of those who have the least ability to take care of themselves. The sequester is going the wrong way, and that's it's cutting the wrong programs in the wrong way.
Now, I know that you mentioned drones. Now, the Iraq War was started by the previous administration. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And everybody knows how bad that was.
Yeah.
And I'm no fan of George W. Bush, and was really horrified by the Iraq War from its very inception. But now we've got a Democratic president who's been reelected, and on his orders and with his permission, he's flying drones into Pakistan and places in the Mideast and killing folks. This isn't partisan anymore, is it?
No. And in fact, when you look at the previous Occupy Des Moines protest, we did not just stop with the Republicans. We did target Obama during the campaigns. We targeted the Democratic Party when they wouldn't listen to us. So it's not about partisan. It's not about party. It's about the policy.
So would you say, what's so interesting to me about when an occupier or anybody really who's politically active is taking on some of this stuff, what always interests me is that's what you hear is, oh, we're a nonpartisan group, we're just concerned citizens getting together, and yet the parties, the Republican and the Democratic Party, try to co-opt you. That's what happened to the Tea Party. That's what happened a little bit to Occupy. Do you think you guys are two sides of the same coin, or do you have completely disparate messages?
When the Tea Party first started, there was that issue of waste in government. I don't want to see waste in government. I don't want to see $600 toilet seats. I don't want to see billion-dollar wars that are not doing anybody any good, especially innocent children. Drones have better uses than for killing people. Drones can be used for forest fire tracking, for search and rescue, for flood, flood monitoring, and for movie making. You can shoot awesome movies and TV shows with drones. You can get shots that you couldn't get with a pilot. So, there are good uses for that stuff, not killing people.
So I think that really what you'd say the object of today was to sort of remind people that not only did we have a 10-year-old war that's still effectively being fought, even though we're out of there officially in Iraq, but our Nobel Peace Prize winning president, who I voted for twice, who I support, is flying a covert, directing a covert war, and it's got to stop.
Yeah, and it can come here because if you look at the National Defense Authorization Act, there are provisions which could basically say that what's being done overseas can be done right here within the U.S. border.
Now, there is some talk about the drone program being flown out of the Des Moines International Airport. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah. In fact, several of my cohorts protested that several months ago. I would have been over there, but I found out about it too late for me to get over there.
So, well, tell us more about what you know about the drones being flown out of Des Moines, because we're also losing the F-16s at the same time.
Yeah, they are to replace the F-16s, and from what I understand, having seen reports from a similar change of operations down in another city, in another state, the drones can be used for spying on not only military, surveillance. They could be used. A police force could ask to get time with the drones to spy on their suspects. The FBI, ICE, Homeland Security could could use them to spy on, say, someone like me.
So, do you agree with a policy like that, especially since it's being instituted by a Democratic president?
Absolutely not. I cannot consider myself a citizen of a country that would spy on its own people. I mean, you know, I get enough being a Muslim. I get accused of stuff which I am not capable of doing, that is done in places where I have never been and probably will never be able to afford to go, or that has never been done at all. But, you know, I'm okay with that. All I can say is bring it. If you want to try to dig up dirt on me, go ahead, you try, because you're just going to get dirt.
All right. So essentially what I hear you saying is, you know, it's not really the administration, but the policies of continuing this of the Bush policy of extending war, but now Obama essentially seems to have extended the war not only in Iraq and Afghanistan, but is starting to extend it on our home soil.
Yeah, and you look at what all that money goes to, who gets it in the end? It's those companies that build the drones, that provide the training systems for the operators. Those companies are making money off of the misery of other people, and they can put their profits to better use. They can build systems that will do public good instead of harm.
If you had a chance to talk to President Obama, what would be the one thing you would say or the one question you would ask him?
I would ask him, what are you going to do to make me feel comfortable in trying to get my U.S. citizenship back? Even though I was born in this country, my family's been here since 1800s. What will you do to make it worth me trying to get my citizenship back after it has been taken so I could not even vote in the last election?
All right. Well, Kaylin, we appreciate you coming in and talking with us. We'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. You're listening to us every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on webcast1live.com. We appreciate everybody who tunes in and listens. We also appreciate our sponsors who allow us to continue to use this studio. We want to give thanks to Kaylin Strain, who was a very special guest of ours, who came all the way down from Merle Hay Road on a bus to be able to talk to us. I thought what she had to say was pretty interesting.
Well, I thought it was interesting too, Doc. And I think what you're hearing from folks like Kaylin and from anybody who's got those particular kind of views is that really there is no partisan divide when it comes to peace. And that when it comes down to how folks view war at this point, it's crossed party boundaries. And I find it interesting that the Peace Party in 2003, 10 years ago, the Democratic Party up against the Bush policy, and now we're seeing the Republicans full circle saying, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't be fighting these wars." And the politics being played with it's remarkable to me, and it also saddens me. But folks like Kaylin kind of make it seem a little bit more worthwhile. There are people out there who care about that stuff.
Well, they were, and it was freezing cold, and they were on all four corners. And the one poor guy I was talking to, trying to get him to come down, he was shaking, and He looked kind of like he didn't look like Dumb and Dumber, but you know that scene where they're riding the motorcycle in the Well, that's kind of what he looked like. So he was quite cold. The one thing she mentioned, which I was kind of glad she did, is the sequester. The cuts in the sequester are just ludicrous. You have studies on why gay men are thin and lesbians are fat continuing to be studied, but yet you have Head Start programs cut. You have programs that show obvious benefit being cut and programs that at best are dubious benefit, like the $5.6 billion 120-mile super train from Hollywood to Las Vegas being supported. I mean, it goes straight through Harry Reid's territory.
I thought that I had read that the train was not going to happen now. That they're not working on it right now.
Well, then that must be within the last couple of days. Because last I heard, and this was, I was checking up last week on Friday. As of last Friday, they were still talking about they wanted to go forward and everything else.
Well, maybe someone wants to call and clarify that for us, because I thought that I had seen that while they were fighting for it, that it didn't look good. Well,
the other thing is there's $5.6 billion. There's into your sequester, right? You got all kinds of programs. I mean, there's a study out there about why lesbians are fat that cost $1.5 million in the last 2 years. You're going to continue to fund that. There's a study out there that talks about how sea creatures feel about democracy. That's a study I'm pretty sure we don't need. One of the things she did bring up is, and I want to clarify this. Mm-hmm. She brought up we don't need $800 toilets. Amen to that. We don't need $800 toilets. But the problem is doing the black ops stuff in the military. That's how they kind of justify their expenses, so they don't have to reveal, exactly how much their black ops missions are.
Well, and I think that you could see a lot, and I believe that a lot of the contracts that have gone out to sort of these private entities for security and all that kind of stuff cost a lot of money too. Maybe that's something they could look at as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, the problem with these defense cuts, and no one wants to see defense cut way back to a point where we can't protect ourselves. But as a Democrat, I would suggest that we could cut it a lot and still be pretty good, since we're the biggest bully on the block, so to speak. However, it's really
America isn't a bully.
There's a few folks in Pakistan that would disagree with that assessment, I think.
Well, everybody all over the world would disagree with that assessment until you start talking about to the former Eastern Bloc, and they'll go, "We'll show you a bully."
Yeah, all I got to say is that programs like losing the F-16 or not having these tanks sitting out in the Nevada desert, all that kind of stuff seems logical to me to scale back on. But we had a pretty vigorous argument about some of the tuition stuff that was going on, and tuition assistance is getting cut back, and that to me that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand, nope. And it's the heads of the branches of the military. I don't understand why, we can stop production on a bunch of tanks. That would save us a whole lot more money. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to cut tuition assistance to distance learning programs that help folks overseas get their degree while they're serving their country. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And it's really frustrating. Well, one of the things that, these things are coming down straight from the White House. There's email leaks that prove that Obama is telling the heads of these departments, listen, you have to make it hurt. Keep the good stuff for us, but, make the poor guy, suffer. That's essentially how I look at it. The problem I have with defense cuts, I'm all for cutting defense. We now have this plane that crashes all the time, is slow. We're paying for that, but yet we're not going to develop the F-22. Well, we already have that mostly developed. All we got to do is produce it now, right? But instead we're going to shift over cost to something else. When you start talking about budget cuts for the military, what you're really doing is talking about cutting the wages of privates, sergeants, corporals. You're not going to get rid of the people that are pouring money into this. You're not going to get rid of the military-industrial complex that feeds the generals and in turn the politicians. You're going to start cutting poor folks that don't have another option besides the military. We've talked about that before.
Yep.
And your point is taken that Lefty made a point 2 years ago, maybe now, that most of the military they market to people that are less than white. Let's say it that way, and that there's a majority of our military are people that are from poorer backgrounds and from being disadvantaged. And I don't know if skin color means you're disadvantaged, but
it can contribute even today.
And so that's what you're talking about. You're talking about kids that are here illegally because their parents came, and now they don't have any place else to go. So their one avenue of getting here legally is to go through the military. Those are the people you're cutting. You're cutting people like Tim, right? Those are the people you're hurting. You're hurting people that want to work, that want to defend our country. And yet, here we are spending millions for Michelle Obama's 50th birthday.
You're getting a little off topic then.
But that's what the decisions are going to be. We're going to keep celebrating and partying, but we're also going to cut off all these things. They got rid of what Tim say, 75 people over in Lincoln.
I don't remember the exact number.
But we're cutting troops.
All I got, it's a shame. It's a shame that the Republican Congress voted for it. It's a shame. It really is.
Well, the Democratic Congress voted for it too, as well as the Democratic Senate,
and the president signed it.
And the president signed it,
but it had to get through 2 houses of Congress. The thing is, here's the big problem. Rather than actually deal with the fiscal issues, and you heard this past weekend, the president and Speaker Boehner on different shows admit that there is no short-term fiscal crisis in this country. The debt is fine over the short term, but they're bickering about it like spoiled children, and this is what we're getting because of it. So it just...
Well, but basically...
It's unbelievable.
Now, right, when we get after the break, we got to take a break now. And right after the break, we're going to start talking about how John Boehner is going to lose his speakership. And we'll be back with that subject right after the break, listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
This is Doc with Doc and Lefty. Thanks for joining us. We're here every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on webcast1live.com. Before the break, we were talking about how John Boehner is pretty much going to lose his speakership. I'm going to, from my perspective, lately here, John Boehner's come out and said, I absolutely trust, what President Obama says. And I believe that he's trying to negotiate in good faith. It's just we have some differences. Well, great. If that's the way it's always been, then how come we don't have a budget? What have you done? If you trust him, produce a budget and then discuss it. So what have you been doing with your leadership? The other thing is, here's John Boehner, who said, well, we'll do the sequester. And now and Lefty hit it on the head last segment. The Republicans went for it. Complete setup. Obama doesn't have anything to lose now.
Nope.
Nothing. So why are you even going to try to deal with that guy? Because he's going to do whatever he wants to do.
He's got the bully pulpit and the high hand and the approval rating. It's not as good as it was right after the election, but it's still better than Congress. Now, the thing that's so crazy to me, John Boehner's going to lose his job. And you know why they don't have a budget? Because he has outsourced, insourced, whatever you want to call it, the responsibility of crafting a budget that has the potential of getting through Congress and getting signed by the president to a guy who 2 times now has submitted a budget that basically destroys Medicare as we know it and is predicated on saving money by repealing Obamacare, which is never going to happen. Paul Ryan's budget proposals are not serious. They're designed more to shore up the base, and John Boehner's letting him do it. And what happens then when that gets shot down? No one's going to blame the Democrats, because the Democrats are going to say that's never going to happen. Everyone likes Medicare and Medicaid. Sorry. They're really popular. You're not going to get rid of them. The president's the president until 2016, 2017. You're not going to get rid of Obamacare, so you might as well just not even put that in the projection. It doesn't make the Democrats look bad. It makes the Republicans look disorganized and stupid.
Well, and absolutely. And part of the I think Paul Ryan is developing the Mitt Romney problem. I was looking at Paul Ryan's proposal. And when he first came out with this proposal 2 years ago, I was against it. I looked at that and went, well, there's nothing here. All we have is, Obama light. For me, as a fiscal conservative, as a staunch fiscal conservative, there's nothing in there that's positive. We're still growing government. We're just not growing up by, what was it, 22% or whatever the statistic was for Obama?
Right.
We're growing up by 8%. That's still 8% growth of government. That's not what I vote. That's not what I'm voting for. That's not what I want. And in fact, I don't even think the lefties want that. They don't want irresponsible spending. And that's what we get. That's part of the problem with sequester. We're spending irresponsibly. We're also deciding what programs to cut irresponsibly. So I don't think I think Paul Ryan, I'm glad he ran for vice president. He's cute, he's charming, he's the rest of it. But he's got to get it together and go, well, listen, these are proposals everybody can agree on.
Yep.
And they're not doing it.
He's not serious. He's not serious.
John Boehner has to deal with Eric Cantor, who is basically leading the Tea Party faction. Eric Cantor is saying it doesn't matter if we're trying to get along with the president or not. We have to focus on fiscal responsibility. And let's face it, Obama has not been fiscally responsible, no matter how you slice it. The Congress has not been fiscally responsible. They have abdicated their responsibility for 3 years in a row. They've had control of the Congress since 2010. They could have had two budgets out there by now, you know, and that's really what it is. And there's a giant schism. And, when you start drawing together all the problems that are going on, Karl Rove is splitting the party. Reince Priebus, who's trying to put the party back together with this non-advisory advisory board, is further splitting the country. You cannot alienate your base. It's one of those things where I just don't think the Republicans are going to be in a position. It shouldn't even be negotiating with Obama. What they need to do is come up with a budget, say this is fiscally responsible, this saves Medicare, this helps everybody, this helps the donut, it helps all the other problems that we're facing, where we can actually get more social programs, and just stick it right in front of Obama and say, but in the meantime, we're going to be cutting green energy. Because, if you take the money that was given to Solyndra, no more sequester. I mean, that's really the decisions we have to make, and nobody's willing to do it out there.
Yeah. It's a shame that Bush gave him Solyndra all that money. It's a shame. But, anyway... I blame Obama. Well, of course you do, because they went belly up under his administration. But,
of course.
Because the government, and we got to wrap this up pretty soon. Yeah. But I'll just say this, kind of as a final note: the government makes bets that fail all the time. They make investments that fail all the time. Okay, that's just kind of how it works. If they didn't do that, we wouldn't have things like the internet. We wouldn't have money for things like MRIs, because those are all sort of things that the government invested in. The issue is that we have gotten to a point where all government investment is seen as pork belly spending that doesn't do anything. Well, the next time that you have a health issue and you go for your MRI, thank whichever person in the government got that thing done, because it's helped save a lot of people. So I would just say that we need to have a sea change in this country that recognizes the fact that spending money isn't evil. Spending money stupidly is stupid.
Yes. And, as far as investments, I think that the government has a role in trying to encourage research and development, but it doesn't have a role in trying to pick winners and losers. That's it for our show today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week from 6 to 7 on webcast1live.com. You can also find our shows on YouTube at youtube.com/Doc and Lefty. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Love these guys. Get over here. Get over here. Love both of them.